Hey yo, hey everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing Booster Gold. Past Imperfect. Take a look at this comic cover right here. Now I love Booster Gold. No matter how crappy my day may be, or how stressed out I may be, or sad and down in the dumps, Booster Gold's always there to cheer me up and make my day boosterific. Look at this guy. Just look at his comic cover. He's winking, he's smiling with those little dimples, and he's giving a thumbs up. How can you not love Booster Gold for that? But see, Past Imperfect is a very important turning point for Booster Gold because see, Dan Jurgens, the father of Booster Gold, is no longer on the title. For those of you that don't know, Dan Jurgens is the man that created and started Booster Gold and wrote pretty much all the comics Booster Gold has been in for his main series. Instead, Keith Giffen jumps onto the title. And you should not be worried too much because see, although Keith Giffen isn't Dan Jurgens, he does have his time and experience with Booster. See, Keith Giffen is best known for his work on Justice League International, whom Booster Gold starred in with the rest of the international game. Blue Beetle, Guy Gardner, Fire Ice, Martian Manhunter, Batman, and the rest of the bunch. So Keith has a good grasp on Booster Gold as a character, but Keith also does different kind of writing. Dan Jurgens has been writing Booster Gold kind of serious as a time-traveling cop, for lack of a better term. A guardian of the time stream. But Keith Giffen brings a little bit more comedy to Booster Gold, which is what Booster Gold was originally. So the question is this. Is Booster Gold returning back to his original form as kind of a comedic character good for him? Or is it a step back in the evolutionary development of his character, who has grown so much since he first came into our hearts and souls as the boosterific, playboy, egotistical, narcissist hero that he is? Well, those are questions that will be answered when we get into this review. Let's start things off with the actual story itself. Now, Booster Gold Past Imperfect is supposed to be a companion to Justice League International Generation Lost, and you can kind of scratch the International, but I put it in there because it really is just Justice League International. But this is a companion to Justice League Generation Lost. But it really isn't a companion in the sense that the only thing that comes from Justice League Generation Lost that affects this is Booster's looking for Maxwell Lord. That's about it. And that's even such a small part of it, because although that's his overall motivation, it's really not exemplified that much in the story. So, Booster Gold is looking for Maxwell Lord, and he decides that, gee, maybe if I can get proof from the past that Maxwell Lord exists, people will believe me. Now that logic right there is a little skewed, because if you read Justice League Generation Lost, you would know that any proof of Maxwell Lord, whether it be pictures or a videotape or even Maxwell Lord himself standing in front of someone, they won't remember and they won't even see it because of the big mind wipe that Maxwell did. So Booster Gold's methodology right now is a little flawed, but we'll roll with it. So anyways, Booster Gold goes back into the past to find proof of Maxwell Lord being alive and actually existing. And he goes on a whirlwind adventure with his old Justice League International gang of shenanigans and tomfoolery. Him, Mr. Miracle, Blue Beetle, and Big Barda go off on a huge adventure to a mystical alien planet where magic rules everything, to dealing with the Dark Stars, to getting entrapped in a prison and have to be broken out, and Blue Beetle being turned into a squirrel. Yes, there is a lot of shenanigans and tomfoolery in this. And a lot of awesomeness. For example, there's one part where they go up against a red dragon, a great worm red dragon for those D&D players. And Big Barda jumps up and POW! Punches it in the face. Oh, just beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful. In addition to this, Booster Gold also becomes a father. Kind of. Booster Gold saves a little girl from a future that is, well, very grim, and everyone on the planet gets killed. So, in order to save this girl, he brings her back to the past. and he kind of becomes her default parent. I know, Booster Gold, the most immature, narcissistic, cocky, egotistical superhero of them all. A parent? Really? Hmm. Well, it kind of mixes things up for Booster Gold. And it mixes things up so much that the little girl wants to help out Booster. And she even goes into the past to World War II to help him in his search for Maxwell Lord. That may not make sense, but if you actually read the story, it makes sense. Kind of. Based on the logic of a 5-year-old girl. But things does get mixed up where Booster has to go back to World War II, save the little girl, and retrieve the time sphere that she took to go back in time. And that's the basic story right there. Booster's looking for Maxwell Lord and goes on a worldwide adventure with his Justice League International buddies from the past in order to find proof that Maxwell Lord exists. So let's get into the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it. Good. Well, I have to say, Keith Giffen does a very good job at keeping the story going, throwing in that little bit of comedy that he has, and using how Booster Gold has matured as an individual. Because, see, he doesn't digress Booster at all back to his dim-witted self from the 80s. He actually takes how Booster has grown and rolled with it. Yes, Booster does have those comedic moments from his JLI past, but he is, in essence, an evolved character placed into these new situations, and, you know, it's kind of fun. It's enjoyable, and I like the fact that they don't step away from what Booster has become, because a lot of times when writers get onto comics, they don't write the characters the way they've been written in the previous years. Sometimes writers jump onto the comic, kind of wipe everything off the board and saying, no, I'm going to be writing Batman this way, or I'm going to write Superman like he was in the 80s when I wrote him. No, you know, Keith Giffen stays true to what Booster Gold has turned into. I also like the fact that you kind of gain that nostalgic factor, that jacked of nostalgia right into your bloodstream with going back to the JLA and dealing with the stuff there. I really like how this was an adventure that goes from one point to another. You think Booster's just going to be looking for proof for Maxwell Lord, but he starts off with Blue Beetle going to a secret Vatican base, and then going to a mystical planet where magic rules, and then getting locked up in a prison, and then going to World War II. It really is an adventure, and that's what I like about it. Adventure. The comedy in this is fun, and it really does feel like the good old JLI days. I actually have to say this is a little bit better than some of the comedy that was done in JLI. Probably because not all the JLA characters were used, and nothing against some of the other characters, but like, you know, as funny as JLI a comic could have been, some characters like Fire and Ice and, you know, so on and so forth just weren't that comedic back then. But taking characters like Big Barda, Mr. Miracle, Blue Beetle, and our good friend Booster Gold, and mixing them all together, good, well-rounded characters, you get some great writing material. The art is also has a sense of charm to it. I really do like the art in this. It's not our standard Booster art that we've been getting, but it's welcomed and invited. Bad. Well, despite all the good I've been saying, there is bad. First bad is that this really doesn't go anywhere. It just kind of goes around in a circle, and in a circle again, and continuously in a circle. There's no really plot to this other than Booster just going to miscellaneous eras and reliving his JLS stuff. And that even makes me worried that what happens when Keith Giffen has to write Booster Gold not using JLI from the past. Is Keith going to keep on going to the past, to the JLI days, just to write good stories? Or will he actually be able to write Booster Gold in the here and now? That is a question that I was continuously asking while reading this, because, like I said, this feels a lot like the good old JLI stories, but we're not reading JLI, we're reading Booster Gold. So, I want to see more of Booster Gold here and now than him going back and dealing with the JLI. In addition to that, this really isn't that much of a companion to the Justice League Generation Lost. Which I do have to comment, one thing is that I do like how things are organized in this, sometimes with companion stories, it seems like a week has happened in the story, and it just doesn't fill in time-wise to the main story. But the great thing about this is that Booster can be gone for like a year and then just teleport back to the moment in time that he left. And it's like this whole adventure happened and it really didn't happen, and it works out well. But for the sake of being a companion to a big DC story, Booster Gold Pass Imperfect just doesn't do that. I don't see why they say it's a companion. All it really is just him looking for Maxwell Lord. Whether or not you should get it, well, I have to be honest, and I am a little concerned. If you go to, I believe it's boosterific.com, at the very bottom you see a chart of Booster Gold sales as a comic, and they are progressively getting worse and worse and worse since Dan Jurgens left the comic and Keith Giffens has jumped on. Now, mind you, I've only read this much of Keith Giffens' Booster Gold, but I found it, for the most part, enjoyable, charming, and I loved it. It has a little bit of nostalgia, but it also works with the current Booster Gold stuff that's done as of now. Dan Jurgens is going to be hopping back onto the title to kind of revitalize it and keep it from being canceled. And hopefully that does happen. Last thing I want to see is Booster Gold's comic gets canceled. I mean, I have my favorite comics out there like Batman and Justice League and Wonder Woman, but those comics will never get canceled. Booster Gold is always going to be on the executioner's little mount right there and waiting for that axe to drop, because Booster Gold, despite how good he could be, is just a C to B ranking character that can be canceled if necessary, and I do not want to see that happen. What perplexes me is the fact that a lot of people aren't buying this comic when Keith Giffens was on it. Now, mind you, I've only read up to issue 38 that this collects up to, and that's probably around 6 or 7 issues that he wrote, but I really enjoyed this. Mind you, it does have its faults. It has a sense of charm and love to it. It really does feel like Booster Gold, just in the hands of a different writer, staying true to form with the character, but mixing things up a bit. It's a fun adventure story with great dialogue, a lot of dialogue. It can be a little wordy at times, but it really did, I'll say it again, really did a good job at keeping me enticed and keeping me interested. I liked this book a lot, and it was a nice pick-me-up throughout my week, because let me tell you, I had a rough week. I had to go to job fair after job fair after job fair, dealing with project after project after project, and test after test after test. I had a lot of stuff to do this week, and coming home to Liz, and I guess my girlfriend too, coming home to Booster Gold cheered me up. So I do recommend picking up Past Imperfect. It's a nice shot of nostalgic for old readers, and it's something new and different for new readers. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it does have its faults, but I would definitely put it up there as one of the better Booster Gold series. So, if you want a good Booster Gold story, pick this up. It was really enjoyable. It's going to be $17.99, a little bit more than what most Booster Gold stories have been going for. They've usually been going for around $14. However, this has more issues to it. It is a bit longer. I don't know if you can see the thickness here, but it is a bit longer. But it's worth it. This is a great series of stories. So with that said, I'm going to end this review here. This is Andrew saying, peace out for now.